Hello, I'm Dr. Richard Ben, a medical professional dedicated to delivering evidence-based care and supporting patients in achieving better health and long-term well-being. Every year, more than 700,000 knee replacement surgeries are performed in the United States alone. That number has tripled in the past 2 decades. And according to research published in the journal Arthritis and Rheumatology, a significant proportion of those operation studies suggest between 20% and 34% are performed on patients who do not meet the appropriate clinical criteria for surgery. That is not a rounding error, that is hundreds of thousands of people going under general anesthesia, having their knee joint sawed apart and rebuilt with metal and plastic, and waking up to a recovery that will consume the next 6 to 12 months of their lives for an operation they did not need. My name is Dr. Richard Ben. I have practiced cardiology for 32 years. The cardiovascular system and the musculoskeletal system are not as separate as medicine treats them. I have watched what happens to the heart, the circulation, and the inflammatory system when a major joint replacement goes wrong. I have sat with patients in the aftermath of operations they were told were inevitable. And I need to say this clearly, the way I would say it to someone I cared about sitting across from me in my office. If your orthopedic surgeon has told you that you need a knee replacement, you owe it to yourself to watch this entire video before you sign anything. Subscribe right now and hit the notification bell. What I'm about to tell you is not what you will hear in the pre-surgical consultation. There is no financial incentive in keeping you off the operating table. Before anything else, the signs that mean surgery may genuinely be your only option. If your knee joint has completely collapsed, meaning the bones are not just close, but actively grinding through one another with zero joint space visible on imaging, and that collapse is causing you to lose the ability to perform basic daily functions, surgery has a legitimate role. If you have a confirmed fracture of the tibial plateau or femoral condyle that cannot heal conservatively. If a tumor or severe infection has destroyed the joint architecture, in those specific situations, reconstruction is appropriate, and I would not advise you otherwise. What I am talking about is the vast majority of cases. The person who is told they have bone-on-bone arthritis based on a single x-ray taken while standing. The person whose pain is real and significant, but whose joint, if assessed properly and completely, still has options that no one presented. That person is who this video is for. Here's the belief I need to dismantle first. Most people believe that knee replacement surgery restores a knee to something close to its natural function, that a worn knee goes in, a working knee comes out, and life resumes. This belief is what the surgical system runs on. It is also incomplete in ways that change everything about the decision. Let me tell you precisely what happens during a total knee replacement. Not the brochure version, the actual procedure. You are placed under general or spinal anesthesia. The surgeon makes an incision approximately 20 to 30 centimeters long down the front of the knee. The kneecap, your patella, is physically displaced to the side to expose the joint. Then a series of precision saws cut away the ends of your femur, your thigh bone, and your tibia, your shin bone. These are not small trimmings. The surgeon removes the entire articular surface of both bones, the shaped curved ends that give your knee its mechanical range and stability, gone permanently. They are replaced with metal caps, one on the femur, one on the tibia, and a plastic spacer is inserted between them to act as the new cartilage. The kneecap itself is often resurfaced with plastic as well. Every nerve ending in the tissue that was cut, every blood vessel that was severed, every ligament attachment that was disturbed, every layer of fascia, muscle, and joint capsule that was opened and then sewn shut, all of it now heals through scar formation, because that is the only way human tissue heals. Scar tissue is not living tissue. It does not contract, flex, snorts, or respond to load the way the tissue it replaced it. It is dense, rigid, and inelastic, and as it matures over the months following surgery, it tightens. Patients describe it as a stiffness that never fully resolves, a mechanical quality to the movement that was never there before, a sense that the knee works but does not quite feel like there is anymore. This is not a complication. This is the expected biological outcome of cutting through living tissue and closing it again. It happens every time in every patient without exception. Now, here is the part of the conversation that almost never happens in the pre-surgical appointment. The knee you were born with is not just a hinge. It is a complex rotational joint with 6 degrees of freedom, meaning it moves in 6 distinct mechanical directions simultaneously during normal walking. The gliding, rotating, rolling motion of the natural knee is what allows you to walk, turn, climb stairs, and kneel without conscious calculation. The metal and plastic implant that replaces it operates in essentially 2 planes. It hinges, it does not rotate, does not glide, does not replicate the 6 degrees freedom of the joint it replaced. This mechanical mismatch does not show up in the recovery room. It shows up at year 3, year 5, year 8 in the hip that has begun compensating for the altered gait pattern. In the lower back that is carrying load it was never designed to carry, in the other knee that is now under asymmetric stress because the replaced knee moves differently. The operation solves the pain in one joint and quietly begins creating dysfunction in the joint surrounding it. There is a clinical term for this. It is called kinetic chain disruption, and it is not listed as a risk in most surgical consent forms. Then there is the implant lifespan question. Patients are typically told the implant will last 15 to 20 years. What patients are rarely told is what happens at the end of that lifespan. Revision surgery, the replacement of a failed or worn knee implant, is one of the most technically demanding, highest risk operations in orthopedic surgery. The bone into which the original implant was cemented has changed. It is less dense, more fragile. The revision surgeon is working in a joint that has already been operated on, that has scar tissue throughout, that has compromised blood supply in the surrounding tissue. The complication rate for revision surgery is significantly higher than for the original procedure. The outcomes are measurably worse. If you are 58 years old and you have a knee replacement today, the mathematics of implant lifespan mean you will likely need revision surgery in your early to mid-70s. At the precise point in life when your body's ability to tolerate major surgery, heal from anesthesia, and recover from a months-long rehabilitation has declined most significantly. The system that recommends the first operation at 58 rarely walks you through what the second operation looks like at 74. That conversation does not happen because it is not in the financial interest of anyone in the room to have it. Now, 3 things you can assess right now before your next appointment with no equipment and no imaging. First, the load test. Stand facing a wall with both hands lightly touching it for balance. Slowly lower yourself into a half squat, thighs not quite parallel to the floor, and hold for 10 seconds. Note precisely where the discomfort originates. True articular cartilage loss produces pain that is deep, central, and diffuse, felt inside the joint space itself. Pain that is sharp, localized to the inner or outer edge of the knee, or travels up the thigh or down the shin, is more consistent with soft tissue ligaments, tendons, the meniscus, or the surrounding fascia. Soft tissue pain has conservative treatment options. It is not the same clinical situation as advanced articular degeneration, and it should not be treated as though it is. Second, the morning stiffness clock. Note precisely how long your knee takes to move freely after you rise in the morning. Stiffness that resolves within 20 to 30 minutes is characteristically inflammatory, driven by synovial fluid that has thickened overnight in a joint under chronic inflammatory stress. Stiffness that persists beyond 45 minutes and does not substantially improve with movement suggests a different picture. The distinction matters because inflammatory knee pain responds to interventions that reduce systemic inflammation. Dietary changes, specific supplementation, load management, it does not require the removal of bone. Third, the imaging question. If you have been shown an X-ray and told it shows bone on bone, ask one specific question your surgeon may not have anticipated. Was this X-ray taken weight-bearing? Standard standing X-rays compress the joint space dramatically. A joint that appears to have no cartilage remaining under full body weight may show measurable joint space on an MRI taken while lying down. The cartilage has not disappeared. It has been compressed out of the visible space by the load placed on it for the photograph. This distinction has sent more than one of my patients back to their surgeon with a very different conversation. Consider a patient I will call Raymond. 63 years old, retired teacher, active man who had been told 18 months earlier that his right knee was bone on bone, and that replacement was the only remaining option. He had been living with significant pain for 2 years. He had tried physiotherapy, which had been discontinued after 6 sessions because his insurance ran out. He had received 2 cortisone injections, which had provided 3 months of relief each time, and then returned to baseline. When he described his pain to me, the location was specific inner aspect of the knee, worse on stairs and after prolonged sitting with morning stiffness that resolved within 25 minutes of moving. His MRI showed significant medial compartment narrowing but measurable remaining joint space. His X-ray taken standing showed what appeared to be bone contact in that compartment. I asked Raymond 3 questions his orthopedic surgeon had not asked. What does your diet look like? He described a pattern heavy in processed food, very low in oily fish, almost no vegetables beyond potatoes and onions. What is your daily movement pattern? He sat for most of the day, walking perhaps 15 minutes total. What is your body weight relative to 5 years ago? He had gained 11 kilograms in the previous 4 years. 11 kilograms of additional body weight places approximately 44 extra kilograms of force on the knee joint, with every step due to the mechanical leverage the joint must manage. His cartilage was not being destroyed by age. It was being mechanically compressed by a load. It was not designed to carry in a joint that was inflamed by a diet that fed systemic inflammation daily in a man who was not moving enough to circulate the synovial fluid that nourishes the cartilage that has no blood supply of its own. None of these were addressed by the cortisone injections. None of them would be addressed by a titanium implant. We addressed them instead. Step 1. Synovial fluid restoration through movement sequencing. Cartilage has no blood vessels. It receives every nutrient it needs from the synovial fluid that surrounds it, but only when the joint is moving. Compression and release, the mechanical cycle of weight-bearing movement, is what pumps nutrients into cartilage and waste products out. Raymond began a specific daily sequence. 10 minutes of non-weight-bearing knee cycling lying on his back feet in the air, pedaling motion every morning before standing. This circulates synovial fluid through the joint before any compressive load is applied. It is the cartilage's morning nutrition delivery. It costs nothing. It takes 10 minutes in bed before the feet touch the floor. Step 2. Dietary inflammation reduction with 3 specific additions. Oily fish, sardines, mackerel, or wild salmon 3 times per week. The omega-3 fatty acids in oily fish directly suppress the prostaglandin pathway that drives joint inflammation. This is the same pathway that cortisone injections suppress chemically. The fish does it through diet without the tissue-thinning consequences of repeated steroid exposure. Turmeric. 1 teaspoon of ground turmeric with a pinch of black pepper in any warm meal daily. Black pepper increases curcumin bioavailability by up to 2,000%. Without it, turmeric passes through largely unabsorbed. Tart cherry concentrate, 2 tablespoons in water every evening. Anthocyanins in tart cherries have been shown in multiple clinical trials to reduce markers of joint inflammation comparable to low-dose anti-inflammatory medication without the renal and gastric side effects that make long-term NSAID use so problematic in people over 60. Step 3. The quadriceps restoration protocol. The quadriceps muscle group, the 4 muscles running along the front of the thigh, is the primary dynamic stabilizer of the knee joint. When the quadriceps is strong, it absorbs the compressive load that would otherwise be transmitted directly to the articular cartilage. In the majority of people over 55 with knee pain, the quadriceps has weakened through disuse. The pain discourages movement. The reduced movement weakens the muscle. The weakened muscle transfers more load to the cartilage. The cartilage degrades faster. This is the loop, and it is broken not by replacing the joint, but by restoring the muscle that protects it. The exercise seated leg raises. Sit in a firm chair, straighten one leg until it is parallel to the floor, snorts, hold for 5 seconds, lower slowly, 10 repetitions each leg 3 times daily. This loads the quadriceps without compressing the knee joint. It rebuilds the dynamic stabilizer without aggravating the articular surface. Within 4 weeks of consistent practice, most patients report a measurable reduction in joint pain, not because the cartilage has changed, but because the muscle protecting it has strengthened. Raymond followed all 3 steps for 14 weeks. At week 6, He described the pain as reduced by more than half. At week 10, he was walking 45 minutes daily without significant discomfort. At week 14, he returned to his orthopedic surgeon. The surgeon noted improved function and reduced effusion, less fluid swelling in the joint. The conversation about replacement was deferred. The last time I spoke with Raymond, he had not revisited it. He did not change his imaging. The narrowing in the medial compartment is still there on the MRI. What changed was the inflammatory environment destroying the remaining cartilage, the mechanical load compressing the joint with every step, and the muscle that was supposed to be protecting everything that had slowly stopped doing its job. A surgery designed to eliminate pain by removing the joint is not a solution to any of those three problems. It is a bypass of all three, one that leaves them fully intact and fully active in the tissue surrounding the implant. Here's what to do before your next orthopedic appointment. Write down three things: where exactly the pain is located when morning stiffness resolves, and whether your x-ray was taken standing or lying down. Those three pieces of information will change the quality of the conversation you are about to have. Ask your surgeon directly, what happens if I decline the operation and pursue an aggressive conservative protocol for 6 months? If the answer is that conservative management is not possible in your case, ask why specifically. What in your imaging or clinical picture makes conservative management contraindicated? If the answer is vague, find a second surgeon, then a third. Compare what they say. A decision that will alter the mechanical architecture of your body permanently deserves more than one opinion from one person with one financial incentive. How old are you? Write it in the comments right now. The risk profile of knee replacement surgery changes significantly between someone at 58 and someone at 72. The complication rate, the recovery trajectory, and the revision surgery timeline all shift with each decade. Knowing where this audience sits shapes exactly what I address next. Your number in the comments determines where this channel goes. The best knee replacement is the one that turned out to be unnecessary. That is not a slogan. That is the standard of care that the system is supposed to be reaching for and too often is not. Your knee is not simply worn out. It is inflamed, under-muscled, and mechanically overloaded by habits that can be changed starting tonight. Give it the conditions it needs before you give it to a surgeon. Subscribe and hit like if this gave you something your orthopedic consultation never did. And send this to someone who has been told they have no choice. There is almost always a choice. They just were not shown it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.